Catherine, welcome to the Crawford School of Public Policy. It's great to have you here. I'm the Director of Pacific Research Partnerships at the Crawford School for Public Policy. This position is associated with the new journal, the Journal of Asia and the Pacific Policy Studies, which is going to be the flagship journal for the Crawford School, dealing with economics and governance issues, but with a very particular focus on the Pacific. And it's really great that we have you, Catherine, here today to talk about some of the work you've been doing on labour markets and education in New Caledonia. And I thought it would be good if we could start with you giving a bit of a précis of the work that you've been doing and the presentation that you gave at the seminar this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. So I'm working currently on ethnic inequalities in New Caledonia because it's really a challenge now for Kanak people to catch up with non-Kanak people because New Caledonia is supposed to be on its way to independence, and to be able to deal with independence, people have to be qualified to take good decision, I will say. And so what we are doing in this study is to look at what happened during the last 20 years in school achievement and how improvement in school achievement is rewarded on the labor market outcome. And what we see is that that Kanak people still have much more difficulties to get higher education degree and to have high school achievement, and they also are still discriminated on the labor market.
Okay, and your analysis has shown that there have been improvements in educational achievement over the 20 or so years of the data series that you've looked at. Are there any specific policies that you can attribute that improvement to? Has there been a conscious effort to try and improve educational performance?
Yeah, I think that there are some programs, some policies to close the gap in school achievement, which has been implemented in New Caledonia since 20 years. It's at the beginning, or it's still the case now, but at the origin, the school in New Caledonia is really a copy of the French system, with a curriculum of French kids who learn that there are 4 seasons during the year and things like that. It's funny, but it was still the case few years ago. Now for history, geography, and natural sciences, there are books that are really will really focus on New Caledonia, so that children learn what happened in their country and not 20,000 kilometers away. So I think that's a good thing, and it's improved school achievement. Also, what was done is that Kanak languages was introduced at school, at primary school, as a language to teach mathematics and history and things to pupils, because it has been shown that when a young child learns new things in his mother language, he's able to structure this knowledge and then to learn to easier other languages and more things. So this program of learning in mother languages was, how to say, implemented, but they stopped a few years ago, and I hope it will go on, but it's a long way to, how to say, that's to put more Oceanian culture in at school.
Yes, yeah. But presumably employment requires good French, so that even if your early stages of education cater to that educational imperative of using the mother language, people are going to need to make the transition to be very fluent in French to be able to participate in the labour market in New Caledonia.
Yeah. It's actually once they learned what we call the fundamentals in their mother language, after that they are able to learn French and try better school achievement, even in French in higher degrees.
Yes, yeah. During your presentation, you introduced people to some of the geographical aspects of division in New Caledonia, and you're pointing out the significant differences in both economic activity and concentration of Kanak and non-Kanak people. How does that geographical differentiation affect your conclusions about results? Is it because some people might say, well, you've got disadvantaged areas rather than disadvantaged people, and it just happens that the Kanak people live in the disadvantaged areas. Is that a concern for your analysis?
Yeah, of course. Geographic disparities in New Caledonia are very important. So you are not in the same condition to go to school, to work, according to where you are living. And even if with the closing the gap policy we try to give more to less developing provinces, they still suffer for less development of infrastructure, school, hospitals and roads and all what you need for communication than the southern province. And it's still more difficult for people living in this region to access to education and then to employment.
Yes. Yeah. So certainly in terms of education, it would seem to me that there are policy instruments available to the government of New Caledonia to redress educational disadvantage. I mean, if you put enough resources into those disadvantaged areas, you can improve the educational outcomes. For employment, it's more of a challenge because the instruments that governments can use to eliminate discrimination are much more complicated to manage and rather more difficult to work with politically. Has there been any discussion in the policy arena about this issue?
No, that's not because speaking about ethnic discrimination in New Caledonia is a bit of a taboo, and it's until now there has been no real discussion about that, and to make laws against discrimination or things like that, you first have to show that there is discrimination, to identify in which kind of activities, sector, which kind of job, and then to make laws to control or to reduce this discrimination. But it's not done yet in New Caledonia.
So first you need to get recognition that there is a problem before you can act on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And if there isn't that recognition, it raises an interesting question for us at the Crawford School and more generally about how you inject the results of analysis like yours into the policy debate. Has there been a response from people interested in government to the work that you've been doing? Have you been able to get any kind of engagement?
No, I can just. They are interested in the studies, so they ask for studies, they ask for presentations, they ask to discuss with us. But until now, there is no real decision that have been taken to control this inequalities and things like that.
Okay. So there is an interaction between the university and policymakers around.
Yeah. New Caledonia is very small, so everybody knows each other, and you can easily speak with the minister in charge of education and.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Before we were talking about some of the new developments in the mining sector in New Caledonia and the potential that they might have for changing some of the economic disparities amongst the regions. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, there are two big projects in the mining industry. One in the south, which I think won't really do something against these disparities and ethnic inequalities. And there is also one in the north. And the one in the north is really in a context of closing the gap between communities and between provinces. So it's the North Province who has through a company 51% of the capital of the project. And it's a province with mostly Kanak people, so really Kanak people access to employment. So the level of employment increased dramatically in this area, in the 5 last years. So that's really has an impact on what happens there.
Okay, and is that employment directly associated with the construction of the mine, or is it having an effect on other business activities in the north?
Yeah, actually, the construction of the project implies a lot of other firm in construction and brings people here. So you have to build new houses and new schools and new road and new communication things. So that really has an impact on other sector of activity. What we call in French des effets induits, I don't know in English, indirect effects.
Indirect effects, okay.
Yeah, on economy. Yeah, that's quite high.
Yes.
Yeah. It's evaluated. I think I'm not sure about the number, but I think that the direct effect on employment is something like 1,000 new jobs, and indirect effect is something like 2,000 jobs. So it's a lot.
Yes. And is it having an effect on the involvement of Kanaks as business people?
Yeah.
It is. So it is having an effect on entrepreneurial opportunities.
In the north, they put them together to create some kind of association of entrepreneurs and to get access to markets and things like that. And really, we see an emergence of Kanak people who get involved in activities.
So this development could spearhead very significant changes in the way in which that discrimination or differentiation has manifested itself in the past. If it generates employment in the north and also provides resources to the government, the provincial government in the north. Can I ask, how you say that the provincial government has a 51% stake in the mine? How is it financing that stake? Do you know?
How is financing? Sorry.
They have to buy the 51.
Yeah.
Someone has to pay for the 51% share.
Okay, so they get money from so New Caledonia gets subsidies from the French state and also from taxes and revenue, and then they distribute money to the provinces. So the provinces have some money, they get it to this firm who put 51, and this firm also has some other activities in tourism and aquaculture, fishery and things like that generate generate money that can be used to inject in this project.
Okay. Can I ask what your next steps with your research will be? Have you thought through where you want to take the work further?
Yeah, now we would like to look at, especially in this transformation coming from the mining sector and mining project, what happened for people who are not involved in the mining. They are in region where there is a mining project, there are new activities and everything is price are going up, and people who are not employed and we are living in this region, they have to suffer for higher cost of living, and they didn't benefit from mining industry, and so we're also gonna look if development in mining industry does not increase inequalities. Between people involved in that and people who are not involved.
Which I suppose raises a question about social safety nets. In most Pacific Island countries, the social safety net is the traditional clan structures and the fact that people can return to their farms in the hinterland. There's very little in the way of a formal social safety net for people who are disadvantaged or who can't get work. What is the situation in New Caledonia?
In New Caledonia, there are still a traditional organization, and it's true that young people not finding a job in Noumea or in economic activity can go back in the tribe, in the village, and he will have something to do. He will have a social role in the tribe, and that's a kind of security which is quite nice. But there are also some young people living who were born in Noumea. They are living in Noumea, and they are no more a link
They've lost those links, yes.
with the tribe and the villages. And for them, it's difficult because it's difficult to be inserted in the formal modern labor market, and they also have no security net for them. Yeah. So that generates tensions, and in some area of Noumea, you can see that's really a problem.
Yes, you see in a number of other small island countries, I think particularly in the Caribbean, an enormously worrying problem of youth and youth unemployment, where some of the small island countries are seeing major disaffection of youth and a link of unemployed youth with criminal activities, often linked to what's happening in the surrounding region. Is that a concern in New Caledonia, that these unemployed young people in Noumea are going to turn to socially unacceptable behaviour?
I don't have real data on that. So you can see in the newspaper that criminality is going up and things like that, but I didn't really check the data, so I cannot. But it's true that it's true, as you said, everywhere in the world, that's increasing inequalities imply increasing criminality. That's happened everywhere. So I guess that in New Caledonia it's the same.
It's the same. Yes. Okay. Well, look, Catherine, thank you very much for talking with us this afternoon.